Is it 21, 22?
Yeah, yeah.
No, it's probably higher.
No, it is. It's 20, it's 24 something, I think.
Yeah, same one.
You're watching BCTV, Branford's community access station.
This is BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the Town of Branford.
It's not too bad. It's a start.
I didn't see it. I swear I didn't look.
Yeah.
Nobody else ever thought
Okay, we're going to get started with Town of Branford Board of Finance budget hearings for fiscal 2019, which is for beginning July 1st, 2018 and going to June 30th, 2019. We will meet tonight, plan to meet tomorrow night, Thursday night, and scheduled for next Monday, the 19th. We may consider changing tomorrow night if, in fact, the storm becomes a problem. We have budget requirements that have been submitted to us for $113,034,993, which is an increase of $1,222,018, representing a 1.1% increase. With the estimated revenues at this time of $12.8 million, we'd have a net to be raised from taxation of $100,223,000. And with a estimated grand list of $3.55 billion, there's an estimated mill rate at this time of 28.88, which is a 0.4 increase. I'm sorry, 0.4 of a mill increase, or 1.4% increase. Again, as the public knows, these budget hearings proceed, and then the Board of Finance recommends a budget to the RTM. They go through their budget deliberations, and then we will receive the budget back sometime in May and set the mill rate based on any other revenues or occurrences that happen throughout the process. So with that, we'll begin with the first budget, Young's Park, on page 46. And also, this is for the RTM Ways and Means Committee budgets that are under their purview. Is page 46, and Jim is going to cover for the commission. Jim?
Yeah, the Young's Park budget. Essentially, there's really two items there. It's a small increase in the other supplies, and then you're going to see this in virtually all of your budgets tonight. Part-time workers, per the Selectmen's recommendation, are getting a 2% increase.
Thanks, Jim. And so this is a total request of $9,415. Any questions from the board? Mr. Finch, any questions from RTM members or members of the public? Thank you. Next, we'll move on to Parks and Open Space, page 47. Actually, page 61 is the more detail.
Ainsley's not here.
Ainsley's not here.
And I did talk to Ainsley when, back a couple of weeks ago when the budget was coming in. I just want to point out that the amount that is raised through taxation on page 61 is the 26.8, and that amount is not changing. So the tax requirements for the open space fund remain the same as they were in the prior year.
Thanks, Jim. And so that expenditure request is in total for $59,283. Essentially unchanged except for the 2% on the personnel side. Any questions from the board? Questions from RTM members, members of the public? Thanks, Jim.
Yep.
Next, we will go to Recreation Department. I believe it's a 0% increase.
That's what I heard.
Oh, Alex. Welcome. Commissioner.
With me tonight is Paul Cristola, Chair of the Board of Recreation, and our Assistant Director, Dale Izzo. I'll run through our personnel services first, which are increased due to contractual obligations. As Jim mentioned, part-time was 2%, and the other 2.5% was in there for the director's position, recommendation of the first selectman, and also the union positions at 2.5%. Missing from the regular wages and salaries, I just want to mention, is the assistant director position, which is currently getting ready for negotiations at this point. So that is not that is missing from the regular wages and salaries. We are also proposing a new maintainer position where we will be reducing the part-time Parker Park maintenance line item in half and look to start the position on January 1st of 19, thus not increasing the overall staffing dollars, doing within the staffing dollars. We are requesting this specifically for the addition of the new Community Senior Center project, which will have 2 new floors, approximately 8,000 square feet, which is another 25 to 30% of building space. A more extensive explanation is on 44.1. And that total personnel is 2.1%. And if there's any questions on that.
Questions on the new personnel? So this is a union position, maintainer.
Yes. Yes, it's a union position, maintainer position that we have 2 positions in there that were funded in 2017, 2018. And we're going to be doing, again, as I mentioned, within the dollars of our part-time personnel. And instead of budgeting it July 1st, we're looking to budget at a half a year at this point.
So who maintains the senior center now?
GGB?
GGB, okay. So they don't maintain any of that new building? Not planned?
We're not planning on doing that, no. It comes under our jurisdiction, our board, so we...
So they'll have less to do. They'll have 8,000 square feet less to do, and you'll have 8,000 square feet more to do.
That's about right.
But I believe they'll be able to, I believe they'll be more efficient in doing some of the other buildings that are under their jurisdiction right now that they're not able to do.
Okay, thanks, Alex. Any questions on the personnel side?
Alex, like you say, you're going to reduce the Parker Park maintenance. Are they seasonal or are they part-time? Part-time collects unemployment, but if they're seasonal, they don't.
Well, I can say this, there was 3 positions down there, and 2 of the 3 now do not collect unemployment because we brought them over to our department, and they work throughout the year at a part-time for us, when we can get them in for snow or for some of our outside playing fields or the building.
Okay.
And we expect to do that with this last position. That's why we're proposing. If you look in the explanation, it kind of mentions that about unemployment compensation, I know.
Thanks, Alex. Want to move on to non-personnel?
Yeah, non-personnel is pretty much remains flat, other than the utilities item. It was increased due to some new irrigation sites and possibly installation of an irrigation system at Branford Hills Park, which I will talk about in my capital. If you go back to 2016-17, you can see that we spend in our utility account about 82.5. One of the biggest reasons was we got better control of it this past year. We had a very dry, if you remember, we had a really dry season on both the spring, the summer, and the fall of that year. And we utilize a lot of water. Just at this point right now, going forward, we had budgeted in the utilities about $15,000. At this point right now, we're pretty much through most of the season because we get billed in November for most of the water consumption for the year. That's when you get billed. And we're at $20,000 at this point right now. So we spent $20 already this year in our irrigation. We did cut back in the last year. So that's the increase, and all the other line items have remained flat as we have been over the past many years.
Thanks, Alex. Questions on this non-personnel? So the total request is for $1,145,077, an increase of $21,532 at this point in time, 1.9% increase.
I do want to mention, Joe, too, that out of the $1,145,077, $200,000 is from the Foot Trust Fund in this budget. We did receive approval, and I believe our first check just a month ago, not even a month, a few weeks ago. The approval was on January 29th this year that we got the $200,000 of the grant,
okay,
which we have to write up every year. So.
Great. Thanks. Charlie? Question?
On the $200,000, do you have to define where it's going to be used?
Exactly.
Yes, you do, or don't?
Yes.
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 Okay.
Very much so, and we'll get to that in my capital, but yes.
Okay.
So before we move to capital, Alex, I'll take any other questions? RTM members or members of the public on the operating budget for recreation? Okay, we'll move on to capital, which is on page 44.8.
So in our capital request, which is located on 44.8, it stays consistent where we are on a rotating capital schedule with basketball, tennis court renovations, field renovations, and field fencing. It's really important to continue this program. If you look out, you can see on 44.8 we have it out for 5 years, and it's been continuous. We've been very successful with that. It's allowed us to continue providing safe and exemplary playing surfaces to our participants. And one thing I want to define on that also is that it's really so crucial in these couple of years now where we're relying on the Board of Education for inside facilities, and they're going to be relying on us for outside facilities. And when we have their use and our use, it really adds to that. And this has really been able to, my board can attest to that we haven't, knock on wood, we haven't had to shut down a field in over 20 years. I'm not saying that we might have to, but we've been pretty lucky with that. We've been working on the fields as we've been going through the season, so that's pretty important. We also are requesting an irrigation system at the new Branford Hills Park to provide another safe and excellent playing surface for youth football, lacrosse, and soccer. That park, and that's why it's really important that we try to get that so that we have another playing field in these next 2 years with possibly not having as many facilities that we normally have due to school construction. And partly our construction, but I think we're in pretty good shape right now. We also are requesting another new front cutter replacement along with a sidewalk snow removal equipment, which we've kind of looked out at. I'm not sure if the Board of Finance realizes this, but we do support Public Works, and they support us even more than I support them. But we do help with snow removal on the sidewalks. You know, our guys will be coming in tomorrow, and what we're utilizing is equipment that is our summer equipment, and our buckets are a little bit too big for the sidewalks, and we've had a lot of problem with ripping up some of the sidewalks. So that's why we're kind of looking to getting some snow removal equipment that will actually fit on the sidewalk. We also have budgeted for Short Beach Playground, which is slated for replacement this year, as it remains as the oldest playground at 20 years old in our fleet. If you remember, over the last 5 years, we started in Stony Creek, Bayview Park, We went to Hammer Field with 2. We have 1 in. We already have $75,000 from a state grant that we're going to be putting that second playground in. We already have the money for that once our project is towards the end of completion. We also did replace a couple other areas of playgrounds, and I know the last one that was slated, Short Beach is 20 years old. That was done the last time we did some playgrounds back in 1990. At this moment right now, the Short Beach Association, as of right now, they're voting on a matching grant. The request is $60,000 in your packet. You'll see $30,000 on one fund and $30,000 in a grant. It looks very favorable. I'd be really surprised if we didn't get an answer tonight that they are moving forward with that. I can be wrong, but I think that that will be happening. And if you go to the back page, you'll see the first renditions of, if you can first look at Party Park, you'll have it in color there. That's kind of, if you look up in the corner, you'll see swings. Well, those swings are going to go down towards the end, towards the basketball court. And this is the small playscape that's up in front. We've been very successful we've put 2 playgrounds in of this design, and as I said, the community has been well received. The school has well received it over from Sliney School. They love that playground for their kids. Our community loves it. If you go down to Stony Creek, they're always very, very busy, and they seem to love it. And the other part is we're also proposing a new playground at Branford Hills Park. If you look at that also, and obviously it doesn't look in the back. If you look at that tower right in the middle, there's actually a hill that goes up to the softball field where you can see it's flat. It's not flat there, and it really would give a really nice active playground for that area in town. It has really taken off as a destination in that area of town. We're looking to fund these projects through town, special funds, grants, and actually community support. I know the Short Beach Association is going to look to raise some dollars, and I know that the area, some of the neighbors up in the Branford Hills and the condominiums have talked about moving forward to giving us some dollars.
Okay, thanks, Alex. Questions on capital requests? From the board, Charlie?
Alex, could you tell me again what the splash pad is?
That's for the future.
I know,
Charlie.
but what is it?
So splash pad is basically, they have one at East Haven Town Beach, they have one at Lighthouse Point, where basically it's like kind of a small water park with all different types of, it could be animals, it could be all, just spraying water in a park in the summer. So they're pretty popular. We've thought out loud about Foot Park possibly and Branford Point. We're just throwing that out, so we're still discussing that with the board. Seems to be a pretty big interest. I know Clinton has one, East Haven has one, New Haven has one, some of the surrounding towns do.
So where would you put it? Where would you put it?
Well, I said either Branford Point possibly Foot Park. We've thrown those out for right now. I do want to mention too in the on 44. I wanted to clarify on Foot Trust. If you look to, it is in the general fund, which it says, but I just want to make that clear that that is out of the Foot Trust. If you look on page 44.13.
Sorry about the fencing, Alex.
Right. I'm talking about the fencing, the capital fencing. You'll see that down the middle of the page, you'll see Foot Park Trust for $200,000. It was approved on 1/29. You'll see operations of it. It's defined in our budget book. And I mentioned that $200,000 from our budget, and the capital is $75,000. So that's $75,000 where it says general fund. It is in our general fund, but it's actually the Foot Trust is paying for that capital request.
Okay. Any other questions on the capital? You want to just touch on the fund balances that you have, Alex?
Sure.
On page 4413.
Not sure what I said. Sorry. Yes. On our fund balance, the recreation fund balance, and trying to make this as clear as I can, you'll see a fund balance of $531,312. It says capital equipment and purchase. For all these years, since Joe Trapassa was the director back in 1951, and he was in the community since '62, and since 1990, the last 25 years, we are now running some more programs, and we're trying to do a lot of those programs. We're trying to run those programs independently of the town budget, meaning that our summer playground program, which has 400 kids, our teen travel, which has 100, our after-school adventures program, we're all funding those through this account. So I can go back to 2016-17 on the audit, and you'll see that we brought in $440,000, we spent $420,000, we had an increase, we had a balance after that year of net gain $20,599, and that increased the fund balance from 16-17 to this year. And the point I want to make is that probably $150,000, $160,000 out of the money is for salaries, overtime, a little bit of overtime in there and salaries for the summer programs. We're able to run those without going on to the town tax dollars. We're also, but what's happening is we've been building it up each year. We also have a lot of money in there for donations. We have $35,000 right now as a fund balance for our jazz concerts. We're running our jazz concerts in there. In 10 years, we brought in $250,000 for jazz concerts. We spent money out of that, but we have, so there's dollars in that budget that also takes care of a lot of, so a lot of money's coming in, a lot of money's coming out.
Thanks, Alex. And that's covered, that's again included in the town's financial statements.
Yes.
Casper fund block is $569, that's it?
Yeah, so
what's
meaning
left
that,
We can only spend the interest.
yeah, we can
Okay.
only spend the interest, and you'll see that what's unexpendable is $59,520.
Okay.
We used to have a John Hart fund, but that, we utilize that for the
Right.
air conditioning years ago.
Got it. Okay, questions?
And the recreation fund, did you say you're paying wages out of that fund?
Yes. In 16-17, I can give you an example, we spent about $160,000 within that, so we didn't have to budget for it out of part-time staffing.
That's really the old revolving fund?
I think so,
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Other questions?
Just Alex, that's strictly the summer camp fund,
What,
the salaries? You're using this line item for the
yes,
salary?
yes, yes. There's more expenses in there, but yes, for salary, yes.
Okay, thanks, Alex. Any other questions? Questions from our RTM members, members of the public? Ma'am?
Not so much a question. My name is Dawn Ferrari. I'm a Sharpie resident, and I'm just here to say that we fully support the Party Park renovation. We are in the midst of planning some fundraising and gathering money from other sources. This is a park that is utilized vitally in Short Beach and other areas of the town that we want to use it. So,
Thank you. Okay, just going forward, if anybody else wants to make a comment, they can come up and hit one of these mics up here, and that way it'll be broadcast. Oh, there it is. Over there. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Recreation.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up is the Sewer Assessment Fund, page 64. Jim, you covering this one, or, oh, here, Janice.
We're going to tag team.
How are you? We have our great town engineer. Janice, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks.
I'll let, Jim can cover pretty much the top part of this, I think.
Yeah, maybe you'll notice that the budget is higher this year, and again, some of these revenues may change. I'm thinking about possibly recommending taking some of that out of the sewer assessment fund balance, which is roughly about $2.7 million. Typically, we have the assessments, and those will run for another year or two. And what's really different about it is there's a transfer out of $150,000 for a project that Janice will talk about. We've done this in the past. You may recall, I don't know, was it 5, 6 years ago, we transferred $1.1 million out for a project. So we have used this to do various sewer projects. So there is a project that's currently estimated for $150,000, which will then be in our capital plan, but it will be funded from the sewer assessment fund.
Now, not to get ahead of myself, but will those assessments go into this fund?
The assessments would go into this fund also.
Right. For the properties that you're looking to sewer?
Right.
Yeah, I think it was like $6,000 a property owner for this.
Yeah, we haven't established the rates yet. It's Riverview Avenue in Short Beach has
Right.
Approximately 10 homes that are isolated from access to sewers. And so we're looking at trying a new it's not a new technology, it's new for us, a low-pressure sewer system in the road that will allow for people to then connect to the sewer system, a small force main in the road that the town will maintain with their own pump stations, individually owned and operated. The area is very challenging for construction purposes to go with our standard gravity sewer system, and this will allow still for access to sewers. And one of the benefits to the town of this area becoming sewered is we currently have 3 homes on that street. 3 out of the 10 homes are on holding tanks, of which the town crews go ahead and pump out on a weekly basis. So if we can alleviate that obligation by the treatment plant crews on a weekly basis, it's a great benefit to them. And it also will be a benefit to the environment and to the property owners there to have access to sewers. So really it's a new system. It's currently under design, and we still have to bring it through the WPCA public hearing process.
All right. Right. Jim, what's the fund balance?
2.7 million, almost 2.8.
Thanks. Okay, anything else on the revenue side? It's pretty straightforward. So we'll move to the expenditure side, and anything out that we need to know about here, Janice?
No, I think at the bottom there you'll see the transfer out capital fund, and then we have our operating kind of expenses that are pretty much standard and run pretty flat.
Got it. Okay. Do you want to go into more detail on that project, or do you want to wait on that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I could cover it now. I mean, it's pretty much, we have it under design now. We expect to have an estimate soon from our design engineer and bring it to the WPCA and to the houses that would be served under a public hearing process to possibly create a new district to serve those homes with sewers. As I said earlier, there's the 3 homes that currently are on holding tanks that then would be able to connect to the sewer system and add value to them, as well as take the burden off the town of pumping them out weekly. It's a challenging area, particularly those lots for the treatment plant guys have to go on private property down a hill, and it's pretty kind of difficult to access. So it's a great benefit to us to get this, and we're actually taking advantage of. There's a new home being built there. They needed access to sewers because the lot wasn't going to be able to sustain a septic system. So we allowed them access to sewers, but in that agreement, we are requiring that they start this force main extension that the town will then pick up if this proceeds to extend to the remaining homes that aren't sewered on the street.
Good. Okay, questions? Victor?
Janice, did you say there's a private pumping station involved?
So each of the homeowners, we have a number of homes already that are connected through long laterals and their own pump stations. So what it is it's a small force main that's put in the road, and then each individual lot will have its own pumping station on their property. It's basically a tank with a pump in it, alarm system. They'll be required to have backup generators so that they can function if the electricity goes out.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this way here, because of the grade differences and all the rest of it, this will allow for the sewage to get pumped to the nearest manhole.
Thank you.
Charlie?
On the 3 homes that are there, did they get built knowing they were going to be in holding tanks?
So there were existing homes that had failing septic systems, which were then ordered onto holding tanks. That was their only option. We have about I want to say a dozen homes in Branford, these 3 in Short Beach and the remaining in Stony Creek, where the town actually does pump out holding tanks. They're existing homes that kind of their systems went bad.
Okay, other questions from Janice? Questions from the public on the sewer assessment fund or this particular project? Not, thank you. Okay, next is actually the engineering budget on page 40. And Janice is here again.
Okay, in the first section, you have the personnel section. Salary and wages, they reflect increases for all members of the department except for myself, who has an expired contract. Longevity is increasing for me, having been here now 15 years. And then I have added a seasonal part-time help. And this is envisioned to be an intern for the summer, approximately 10 weeks duration. And it kind of goes hand in hand with the consulting services addition I'm asking for. We do have the need to ramp up our efforts with our stormwater permitting and plan that we have in place that is recently adopted last year and required by Connecticut DEP. And what I'd like to utilize this part-time help summer intern position for is to help with some of the field work that we'll need to do to finalize finding all our outfalls for our storm system. That's one of the requirements. We have a good amount of them done. We do need to verify some and find some others, as well as identify in our GIS system which ones are town-owned as opposed to private or association-owned or state-owned on state highways. And that goes along with the fact that in my next section under consulting services, I'm asking for an increase of $30,000 this year. And this is really to get us started. I would anticipate we'll need some additional funding next year as well before this stormwater permit that's in place, and to have us have the assistance of a consultant to bring us, to keep us in compliance. We have to establish, there's like 6 remedial measures that are required as part of the stormwater permit, and one of them is to develop illicit discharge detection and elimination program for the town, which includes ordinances that need to be established. And we also have to identify all our impervious surfaces, identify where they're discharging to. We have to do dry weather testing, and then we have to come up with ways to to disconnect directly connected impervious areas to stormwater outfalls. So there's a lot of analysis that needs to be done. So we're really going to need that help of a consultant in our department to help us handle this. In addition, I've talked with Dan McGowan from the Solid Waste Commission. In addition to our MS4 permit, we also have our industrial permits for both, well, for the Public Works Department, the transfer station, and the treatment plant. And I think we may still have one for the landfill that we're hoping to be able to make go away soon now that it's parked. But we would like to combine our efforts and go out for an RFP for this consultant to handle not only the MS4 permit, but also help guide us with compliance with the individual industrial permits we have for stormwater in town for town facilities. Some of this money is also used towards stormwater testing, which is a requirement of the permit as well. So Dan has included in his funds what he's had over the years, including some increases by the consultant they've been using and currently using. But we're going to try and combine this effort and go out for an RFP and see who we get on board to handle all our stormwater needs here in town.
Is this federal or is this state?
Well, it starts at the feds, and then it gets handed down to the state, and so, and then the state hands it down to the locals. It's a state stormwater permit, but it's nationwide, been handed down to all the states from the EPA. And each state kind of creates their own way of coming into compliance with the EPA requirements.
So this is on all town properties?
Well, no, it's for the entire town. So our entire stormwater system for the town is under the MS4 permit. And then town facilities that fall under the industrial category then have to have their own permits as well for operating. So we really have to analyze the entire town, and we have most of our town drains to impacted waters, being Long Island Sound is identified as an impacted water, so most of our drainage goes to Long Island Sound. So we have to study pretty much our storm drainage system for the entire town and come up with measures to implement best management practices, improve water quality, decrease quantity, things like that.
Okay. Questions on this non-personnel side?
On the MS4, is there a timeline on this thing when this has to be implemented and completed?
Yes, so the permit was put out last year, and I registered for our permit. Now I'm doing our annual report, has to be done. And then we have 5 years of which all this has to be completed. There's like a whole list of things that need to be done. And some of it is starting this year, some of it is next year, and then the following year. Some of it's, you know, public participation things and public information and education, but some of it gets a lot more technical and detailed.
So what does that equate to in future dollars?
Yeah.
I honestly don't know that. That's where we're starting here with the extra $30,000 in my consulting, and once we put it out for RFP, we're gonna, you know, lead ourselves down the path of compliance with this permit.
Okay. Other questions?
How do you prioritize what gets done?
Well, we kind of have, for this particular stormwater, well, they kind of spelled it out for you in the permit requirements, what needs to be done first. And we have been under a permit since, I forgot what year, 2006 I think it was the first permit issued. And then they just, rather than issue a new permit, they just kept renewing the existing one. So we've been operating under a stormwater permit since 2006. It's just that now they've instituted a new permit which has more onerous, detailed information required for it.
Thank you.
Charlie?
If this originated from the feds, they must have appropriated some funds to the state. So is there any funds available?
Come on, Charlie.
No, actually, this has been very contentious. CCM, you know, a lot. It's been delayed for a number of years because of how expensive this can be for individual towns to implement and remain compliant with.
It's another unfunded mandate, huh?
Yes, we've had a number of unfunded mandates, including like the dam inspection process program and emergency response plans. We just went through that. That used to be handled by the state, and now they pushed it down to the towns as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, other questions on the budget? Questions from RTM members or the public, general public? Not, the total request is for $360,424, increase of $39,245, 12.2% increase. Thanks, Janice.
I just have one
Anything else?
capital item.
Sure.
I already, on page 40.3.
Oh, yeah, $1,000,005. Just a smaller one.
My operating budget's much smaller than this.
Yeah, I know.
So I already talked about the second project, which is the Riverview Avenue sewer extension, and the first project is the $1.5 million for reconstruction of East Industrial Road. The road has kind of been exploding upon itself. We're having major pavement failure out there. It's a heavily used road, as you know, right off of exit 56, and we have the high truck traffic volumes out there as well because of the truck stop and such, and service to the industrial area. It's also a wide road because it has, in some areas, 3-lane width to it. So it's under design in my office. The assistant engineer has been using the AutoCAD to develop the project. We've done test borings to see what the materials are like. We've been surveying the drainage system to see where we may need to do replacements of certain drainage structures as a result of this project as well. We've inspected all of the sanitary sewer lines there in preparation, and we did outsource the original survey of the road for us to begin design. So currently the estimates are running at about $1.5 million to reconstruct that total road.
And when you say reconstruct, that's the entire length?
Yes.
And just
It's redoing your base material, you know, so taking all your pavement out,
Right.
replacing some of our identified drainage structures. I think there's about 3 manholes that need to be replaced. And then building it from your base material up with pavement. And it's going to be a heftier pavement cross-section for the amount of traffic we have out there.
Okay.
And we may also include geotextile under the pavement as well.
Geotextile, tell me about that.
Yeah, so you can utilize geotextiles to add some strength to the base material, to give strength to the road itself, and to prevent future failure of the pavement as well. So it's sort of like it looks like a plastic material sort of, but it's designed to provide strength to the roadway system.
And other means debt, Mr. Finch?
Not necessarily. You know, a lot of our road projects get funded through multiple funding sources. Town aid for roads, LoSIP, and then within the town aid for roads funds, there's the municipal project grants that sometimes the state funds, sometimes it doesn't. And then, you know, last year you appropriated, I believe it was like $525,000 for the road improvement program. So typically what we do is in the springtime, we'll get together and we'll look at our various funding sources and then look at some of the priorities. So this one is rising to be a priority. You know, debt could be an option on something like this, but you know, there may be other avenues as well. So.
Okay. Thanks, Jim. Questions on this project? Peter?
Janice. I know some of these little orphan lengths of road, like Cedar Street from the highway exit from the turnpike to Route 1 are state roads, and this seems, you know, they're state route, you know, something that nobody hears about, but I gather that the state's responsible for maintaining them. And given that there's a lot of truck traffic coming off of the turnpike and going onto the state road of Leeds Island, well, Leeds Island, I guess, isn't it? It just seems like one. Okay. So, but, you know, it connects across there. Any possibility of getting the state to pick this up either before or even after as a state road?
Well, the state actually did rebuild the first section of East Industrial Road as part of the Leeds Island Road interchange and bridge replacement project back in around 2000, I think that was. It hasn't really held up even in that section. It's a little better than some of the other sections. Jamie and I have talked about it. I mean, in my mind, you know, probably should be a state highway system there because it connects the interstate to Route 1. And I'm not sure why when the interchange was redone that wasn't kind of on the table and considered, or maybe it was and they weren't interested. I'm not really sure.
Okay.
But
all right, well, we're looking into it. So, okay. Other questions on this? All right, thanks, James. Next is animal control, page 36 and 68. Welcome, Laura.
How are you?
Good, and you?
Good, thank you. So, I figured we would just use page 68.
Yes.
Okay. So since we're just going through changes, we decided to just do 1% for the increase for the North Branford contribution. Jim usually handles that with their finance director in North Branford. Summer camp fees are going up this year for multiple reasons. One, because we're adding an extra week this year, and two, because we're increasing the price because we're adding some other things. We're giving them lunch boxes and thermoses and stuff, along with the field trips and everything else we offer. So that's why you'll see an increase in those two. What we're asking for the town this year is actually a little less than $104,000, because when we go down to the expenses, we're going to be changing the number under the overtime. So it'll be about $102,000 that we'll be asking for.
Okay.
So either way, we're coming in negative for what we're asking for from the town.
Yes. And so on the revenue side, you're estimating $291,459, or maybe a little less than that if you have less money coming in from the town. And on the expenditure side, you're going to be a little less than $291,000.
Yep.
Do you want to hit the highlights on the any of the increases on the expenditure side?
Sure. So there's increases to the staff wages, but the bigger increase that you will see is under the overtime line item, and that's the one that's actually going to be $6,000. So there will be, instead of $8133, it'll be about $6,000. And we changed it because the formula that was being used for overtime was not including the time and a half that they actually get paid. It was including just straight time. Although we don't seem to go over that $6,000 mark, so that's why we're dropping it down to there. So even though if they used all of the hours that we are thinking they could, it would be that $8133, but I don't think that we're going to go over $6,000 because we typically don't for overtime cost. And I think that's pretty much all the changes in there.
Okay. Questions from Laura on the animal control budget? Charlie?
I'm not quite clear, but on the overtime, it's now 8133 is the request. You think it could go up as high as 6,000?
No, we want to reduce it to 6,000.
Okay,
So
you're going to reduce it by 6,000.
Yeah.
Two 6,000.
So we're gonna, yeah, so
Right,
to
reduce it.
$6,000, yeah, so we'd be taking away $2133 from that number that you see there.
Okay. Now I'm with you.
Okay. Other questions? And any capital requests?
No.
And the age-old question, dog licenses?
Well, dog licenses, we do work with Lisa on trying to get more people to be licensing. So one of the things that we decided, we just had a staff meeting, and one of the things that we are having our residents do now in Branford is anybody who adopts from us on site are going to have to license the dog at the same time that they adopt from us. So we're hoping to increase licensing that way, and we're going to reduce the adoption fee for them so that they will be very happy to license their dog at the same time as an incentive to get them to license. We also every year send out a letter just to the management companies because our condo complexes and the apartment complexes have tons of dogs, and they're not always compliant with licensing. So we send a reminder out to the management companies saying, you know, it's going to be time for licensing, and that they can come to our facility to license, especially on the weekends if it's, you know, convenient for them, because I know they're closed on the weekends. So we do that every year.
So how many dog licenses did we issue last year?
This year, we are up to 956 dogs, which is down a little bit from last year.
How many dogs do you think are in town?
Probably 4,000.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
So you have a highly non-compliant population
We
with
do.
regards to dog
We do.
licensing.
We do.
Okay. And how many kennel licenses do we have?
0.
0, really? Okay. 0 kennel licenses? Okay. All right, questions, other mundane questions for the animal control officer? Your programs are going well?
Programs are going amazing, yep. Our animal camp sells out every year, so, and we
Yeah.
always have a waiting list, yep.
That's good. Well, we appreciate your enthusiasm and the good work you're doing.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board? Questions from members of the RTM or general public? Thanks.
Thank you, have a good night.
Yep, you too. Okay, next is solid waste management and recycling, page 39. welcome. We have a new
Nice to see you.
commissioner.
Thank you.
Hello. Dan and Paul,
How are you?
welcome.
Shall we?
Yes.
So, solid waste management and recycling line starts on page 39. And for the upcoming fiscal year, unfortunately, we have to ask for an increase in our budget of $582,000. $578,000 of that increase I would describe as due to outside commitments, primarily coming from a $330,000 increase in our anticipated curbside collection contract cost, and a $140,000 increase in our material handling cost, which is the fee that we pay at the trash energy plant, which will be in Bristol for the upcoming year. With those increases, we will also see an increase in the cost of the condo rebate program of about $108,000. I know that in the past, we've come before the Board of Finance and indicated that at some point, probably this year, we would be looking at a significant increase, and it happened this year.
Okay. That's the big nut here.
Yeah.
Questions from the board on particulars? Charlie, and then Bob?
On the 330,000, is that just because there's more and more volume?
No, it's because we only received one bid on the curbside collection request for proposals.
It's not a desirable job then, huh?
It's a valuable job.
It is.
It's a valuable job. We're working on a few ideas that could mitigate those increases, but we're not fully developed yet.
Okay, Bob?
Yeah, so we never went out to do the study that we had talked about.
As you recall, in place of doing the study, we got the actual bid. We went out to bid for curbside collection, for recycling, with a single stream option, which was really what that study was going to be. And we evaluated the bid that we got, and the data shows that if we had gone to a single stream option for recycling, the annual cost would go up by $60,000 per year to the town if we changed our recycling method. It's primarily due to the fact that the quality of the recycled materials that we obtain through the methods that we currently use are very high quality, and we continue to receive revenue to sell those recyclable commodities. If we went to a single stream waste stream, we would potentially have more quantity of a much lower quality, and we would end up spending money to dispose of our recyclables. So we'll maintain a revenue stream by continuing to segregate the types of recyclable materials that Branford residents recycle.
And so the contractor who bid, is it the contractor, a current contractor that is delivering services today?
Yes.
Okay. And then we have a $108,000 increase in cost. Why is that?
The facility, the trash-to-energy plant that we participate with in I guess it's a cooperative, is increasing their operating costs and distributing those costs to the member communities, which Branford is one of.
And we have a higher rebate back to the condos?
There's a formula, which I could struggle to explain to you. Dan could do it better, but because we capture our costs for collection and disposal, trash to energy, because we capture those in a tax rate. The condo addresses do not have their trash picked up by the town. So the value of our disposal costs, which are captured in taxation, need to be rebated to those number of households that don't have their materials picked up by the town. So as our costs go up, the rebate goes up too.
Okay. So not that we have more condo or households that we're rebating back to, it's the same number as last year, give or take?
Yes, yeah.
It's just the increase in the fee?
Yeah.
Yeah, the rebate is based on the cost to pick up trash and recycling to each individual household. And with that cost increase with the new contract, the unit price that we rebate to the condos also goes up. It's the same amount of condos still here in town. It's just the unit cost increased and so the overall increase.
It's just redistributed on a per household basis.
Okay. I just think from our meeting last year that we probably could have, if we went out and had a consultant, we might have found some other bidders.
Well, we had six vendors show up for the pre-bid, and for whatever reason, only one bidder turned in a bid.
Thank you.
And so this will not be single stream, it'll be the way that you're currently collecting the trash as well as the recycling?
Yes.
And how long is this contract for?
We're going to negotiate that in the next probably 30 days.
Okay.
But at least 2 years.
The RFP contained what?
It had a 3-year base with 2 1-year options.
Okay.
Yeah, and that will be brought to this board once the recommendation is made.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when is the contract date?
July 1st.
Yeah, all contracts start July 1st for the fiscal year.
Okay, other questions on this budget, this operating budget? Okay. Any capital items on this?
We don't have any of this yet.
Okay, that's
We have
fine.
an ongoing, I think we have an ongoing.
Yep.
We have an existing fund, which we use to replace the scale this year, and hope to do future improvements to the transfer station, but we're not requesting new money be put into that.
So the scale has been replaced, or?
The scale has been replaced.
Okay,
Yeah.
On budget and on schedule.
thank you. Okay. All right, no other questions? Questions from the RTM members? Frank, come on up. Or-
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We just heard, I just wanted to say, I am from the 1st District, Frank Tewell, RTM. We just heard about the cost going up. Would you comment, please, on the income? What's going on with the income from the operations, like the recycling?
Well, as Paul said, we do make revenue on the recycling. There are 3 bids out right now, which we'll get back on Friday, because the revenue that we currently get for recycling is those contracts 2 are coming due, and so we'll know better those numbers this coming year. But there is a revenue sheet. We predict that we'll make slightly over $100,000 in the sale of recycling this year. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So total revenues are, which includes $105,000 for the transfer station, $20,000 for revenue for stickers, trip passes at $2,000, and recyclables for $105,000. Your estimate is $232,000. So just for general knowledge. So, okay, other questions? If not, thank you. Also.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Public Works. Page 37. Good evening. So total request of $2,483,007 for the operating side, increase of 2.1%. Want to hit the highlights on personnel and then the other non-personnel?
Yeah, things were held flat with some minor adjustments. Changes worth mentioning are in the personnel section with contractual salary obligations and accumulated sick pay. One longtime staff member will be retiring this August. As far as non-personnel, there's no significant changes.
Okay. Any questions on on the personnel side? Okay, Phil. Go on to the next one.
And the capital requests.
Chairman, I have a correction. I made a mistake. This is Gary Zielinski, not Phil. My bad.
All right, and that gives me opportunity, Gary, you just got to speak up a little louder.
Oh, sorry about that.
And I know you can, so.
And
thanks for the correction.
The first 5 capital requests offer a minor adjustment up or down based on program needs. There are 2 new added projects. Center decorative light LED conversion for $20,000. And then town parking lots for paving at $60,000, which includes counseling center and the Branford Early Learning Center.
Okay, so we're on 37.6 is what Gary's on. And these are not in the operating side, correct, Jim?
These will be funded through the...
Through capital. Pardon?
These will all be funded through the general fund.
Through the general fund, but it's capital.
Capital, correct.
Yeah, okay. That's right. So, okay, so you got the downtown center maintenance. This is not, it's, comparatively, we don't have it in front of us. These are not new?
Yeah, so as Gary mentioned, the downtown center maintenance, which is just really the upkeep of the benches, lights, walks, curbs.
Yep.
We kept that flat. The road improvements, again, that's one we fund every year. As Jim mentioned, I think we funded it at $525,000 last year. We dialed that down to $425,000.
Right.
It's important to note that this year, under the paving schedule, we were reimbursed from regional water for a large portion of the paving that we did this year. So we feel that moving forward for next year's paving, that what's currently in the fund and other funding sources that were pretty good there. The sidewalk replacement, we slight increase of that, about $5,000. Typically, we've been holding $60,000 for a number of years. However, I know Public Works has been addressing a lot of sidewalks throughout town, replacing a lot of, but also what's adding to the cost is the need to address some transitions, some ADA transitions.
Okay.
So increase that a little bit. I think seawall repairs, we felt comfortable dialing that down a little bit. We funded that, I think, at $35,000 last year. As you know, we have the STEEP grant, which will be addressing Madeira Park, so we felt we could dial that down. And then the apparatus fund, Gary, and along with the foreman and the lead mechanic have been reviewing that, evaluated the fleet replacement schedule, and have made some recommendations that they felt that there could be comfortably some adjustments to that. So that's why comfortable in lowering that, making some room to come forward. Gary expressed an interest. The town parking lots, he's been going out, making a lot of patches. He identified 2 that were in real need of just being replaced, as he mentioned. Where were they?
Branford Early Learning and the Counseling Center.
Early Learning Center, and which were responsible for the capital improvements on that. That's the old Pine Orchard School.
Yeah.
And then the Counseling Center. The other one, he got some pricing on doing the LED conversions. Those are the decorative lights along the center, the green. And basically that will have approximately, it's estimated about a 32-month, just under a 32-month payback for that.
There's no incentives for that LED?
That's included, yeah. The price you're seeing was materials, and then there was you also get reimbursed for labor, so did estimate some cost for labor, and there's some potential to get some incentives, reimbursement on that.
Okay. Thanks. Question, anything else, Gary, you want to add on the capital items? Questions on the capital? Charlie?
On the 20,000, for the decorative lights, is that part of the energy conservation study?
No, the lighting was
separate
kept
from that?
separate, yes.
Okay.
The street lighting was kept separate.
Okay.
Just one question.
Bob?
So what are we doing with our light situation? Usually Con Ed, we're usually coming up short every year. Did we do something to?
Yeah, that was budgeted, I think, at $347,000 this year. I know a couple years we fell a little short, so we had to come in and adjust that. I did talk to Jim, and I think we just felt that we would just come in flat over last year. And, I think we anticipated falling short, but if we did, it wouldn't be much.
Thanks.
Just going back to the budget, the membership council and conferences and meetings, there's an increase there, Gary, of $3,000 some odd dollars, $3,600, small amount, but that's detailed on 37.5, is that what that is?
Yeah. There's a number of recertifications that are due this year.
Okay. And the tree warden amounts are sufficient for trimming and much as it can be? Yeah, you could probably never end with that.
Yeah. At some point, we got to catch up, right? I mean, there's these.
Right.
So many limbs can break.
There's so many trees left.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, but just to that point, Joe, I just say that is something that the town has been struggling with the last few years. It did increase the last couple of years. However, we feel that this year we're able to hold it flat. We're just going to manage it, and we're going to look at some of the tree work that's required and probably incorporate that with some, when we're doing some road work, there's other funding sources that we can tap into, rather than that was typically just a maintenance. It's supposed to be a maintenance, but now it's getting, handling a lot of removals, things like that. So that's why we held that flat.
Thank you. Any other questions on Public Works? You're operating, Charlie?
A flagger. What's a flagger recertification? Is that the guy in the road?
Yeah. Yes.
Isn't that to have training or counseling or something?
Well, it's traffic. Traffic control. It's anger management, and it's really safety.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah, they're required every 3 years, I believe, to be recertified. Is that right?
Okay. Other questions? Questions from the public? RTM members? All right. I think we're all set. Thank you. Docs and Rec on page 48. Yep, you got it. And that's a request of $17,952 for docks and recreational facilities. A small increase on seasonal part-time, 2%, and no increase on the non-personnel. Anything you want to add on that, Gary?
No, I think it just speaks for itself.
So that covers Stony Creek and Branford Point, and
Yes.
that's it, right?
Yep.
Okay. Questions on this budget? Questions from RTM members or the general public? Okay, thank you. Next is Police Services, page 30. Chief. Welcome.
Good evening. I'd like to introduce John Susless. He's one of our new commissioners.
Welcome.
Thank you. I think he drew the short straw tonight, so he's here with us.
I was going to say, Mr. Goodwin is...
Couldn't make it.
Okay. Thanks. Well, welcome.
Thank you. Okay, so the first half of the budget is the personnel. There's really nothing remarkable in the first half of it, other than the addition of the deputy chief's position. The police and dispatch contracts have not been settled yet. We're currently in negotiation, so the only increases you'll see is step increases. Vacations, we adjusted vacations a little bit based on the fact that we are up to full staff. Well, we were last week, but we're down one right now. I anticipate a retirement in August, so that's where you'll see the accumulated sick payout of $40,340, and that's really the changes to the personnel side of it, with the exception of 2% increases for non-affiliated.
So on the steps, Chief.
Yes.
I was looking back on page 79.
Okay, your pages are different.
I don't know if you, you don't have those pages?
No.
In the book, yeah. I just question about the steps.
Okay.
Like for, patrol officer from a B1 to an A is an 8.7% increase?
Yeah, well, those are contractual negotiated items that when you move up has to do with how long you're on the job. So yes, the A is the highest level and C is the lowest.
So how many years before they can move to an A from a B1?
I think it's a year. From an A to a B1, that's going backwards.
No, a B1 to an A.
B1 to an A, I think it's a year, 6 months or a year.
Really?
Yeah. So it's a total of 3 years from C, grade C patrolman, to A.
Okay.
So the exact breakdown, I'm not
Okay,
sure.
that makes, if it's 3 years from C to an A, then that would, and that's based on excellent performance or evaluation?
Contractual. Collective bargaining.
It's just a matter of time, it has nothing to do with performance?
That's all it is. Correct.
Okay. Anything else on personnel?
Hey, Chief, is the contract still being negotiated?
Still being negotiated,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, you want to move to non-personnel?
Certainly. So again, nothing really remarkable. The only increase the increases that you'll see is in the education expense. The reason for that is we have younger officers that are taking advantage of the college tuition reimbursement. That breaks down to about 7 officers taking college classes. Purchase services, you'll see about a $3,400 increase. The lion's share of that is for the iRecord system that has been on state warranty for the last 5 years, and we had to assume that this year. That was a mandated recording system that we install in the police department per state statute, so that is a $2,500 expense. Radio communications, you'll see a $4,400 increase approximately, attributable to the tower lease as well as service contract for Motorola. The next 2 changes that you'll see is just an adjustment in getting particular items into the right line item. So other supplies, we removed $2,400 and we put it into the equipment line item. And memberships in conferences is just a slight increase in the shoreline technical crimes line item. Other than that, there's no changes.
Thanks, Chief. Any questions from the board on the non-personnel piece? So the operating request is for $6,447,399, an increase of $201,439, or a 3.2% increase. Chief, before we move away from the personnel, I just wanted to ask a question about the sick time. I noticed that on average, there's an 8.5%, 8.5 days per year that you budget for. And again, there's the, and I guess 10 for the dispatchers. How does that compare with other departments?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
Okay, just a question. For the board, I noticed that I was just looking also for the difference or the disparity between the fire and the
well, I could probably answer that is we don't replace 100% of the time.
Right.
Where I'm not sure, but I believe the fire department does have 100% replacement. So what we have is a minimum manpower, or minimum car plan, I should say, that we won't go below 4 cars. That's 4 patrolmen.
Right.
So if we have 6 scheduled and 2 book off sick, there's a high probability, unless we anticipate a high call volume, which typically are your weekend, nights, holidays, those types of things, where we have a higher call volume. So we do replace on those times. Supervisors, again, we don't replace 100% at a time. We try to, for liability reasons, try to have a street supervisor on the road as much as possible.
Right. Okay. Other questions on the operating?
Joe, just to jump into that, so Chief, these days that you calculate, is that from your scheduling software that you picked up on these numbers that dial in a lot better than you had in the past?
Correct. We continually do analysis of our sick time and vacation time and try to figure out what the ratio is that we replace. And yes, we do utilize the software for that.
That's been 1 year now in service or 2?
Wow, no, quite a few, 6, 7.
Okay, sorry.
That's the scheduling software?
Correct. Yeah.
Is that the next gen?
No, that's Telestaff.
Telestaff, okay.
So just for a little heads up, next year we might be coming back to look at a new program. This starting to see its age and the updates on that. It's kind of cost prohibitive. I'd like to research new scheduling software, not this year, but for next year.
So that 4,900 is for maintenance?
Correct.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Jeff.
Joe, can I ask you one question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it fair to ask what the process is with the deputy chief position? How's that coming along?
Sure.
Ask away.
So ask away. So it's going pretty well. Yeah, not too bad. The job application has been posted. It's been up for about a week. There's a 2-week suspense on the application, so it's going to close on March 21st. The applications are available internally and externally. So I anticipate there's a process that occurs with the hiring of the deputy chief. We're using South Central Criminal Justice. So what happens is that first they're going to screen all the applications, resumes, so on, to eliminate those that are not qualified. From there, we'll have an interview of a panel of 5 chiefs from the state of Connecticut from various areas of the state. After that, it'll come back to the commission, where they will interview the candidates, and I'll also have a one-on-one interview with the candidate. So Middle May? I mean, yeah, middle May, end of May, somewhere around there. I anticipate having that seat filled. From what I did learn, it's going to be a very competitive process. There's from what I'm understanding so far, there's quite a few highly qualified people applying for the position.
Good to hear. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Chief. Charlie?
Hey, Chief, why is there this pre-screening by these 5 other police chiefs prior to coming to the commission? What's the purpose of that?
So the screening is they're screening the resumes and their documentation that they submit for the position to see if they're qualified. So they're going to weed out people that are not qualified before, and then there is a interview before the panel, another panel of police chiefs, and then it comes to the, so they narrow it down, they vet the candidates for the most qualified people and present them to us. So I know from a recent chief, the deputy chief's position that they just conducted, I believe it was in, I want to say Torrington or that area, there was quite a few applicants, so to narrow down the field, they screen them first.
So to follow up with you, though, that's our choice, that's to do that.
Correct.
Oh, it is.
So it's our choice to utilize that service. That's
Correct.
through the Chiefs Association. It's not required.
Well, it was either that or come to you for $38,000 for IACP, so I figured we'd go with South Central Criminal Justice, which was
What's IACP?
Part of IACP. What is it?
Yeah.
International Association of Chiefs of Police.
So they have to certify somebody, or you couldn't determine that yourself, whether or not somebody's qualified or not for deputy chief?
Well, I'm using South Central Criminal Justice, and it's part of our membership.
Right, it's a membership service, but you could do that without that.
I suppose we could, but to
There's
keep the process unbiased and select the best person for the position, I think that it's important to get input from other chiefs from the state of Connecticut and their collective knowledge of the field.
And so
ultimately, it's going to be our decision who we hire.
Right.
Ask one more. So they prioritize the candidates that you're going to
They're not prioritized, they just say they're qualified.
Okay, so they are going to present you with one or more than one?
Probably 12 to 15.
Okay, but so you have a choice?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, any additional questions from the chief? On the operating side? Questions from members of the public or RTM members? Okay, capital?
Okay, so capital, we're requesting 5 cruisers this year along with the setup. You can see that we've included the mobile video patrol cameras in the setup, basically because the company that we're dealing with, MHQ, out of Middletown, Meriden, somewhere up that way.
Sorry, Chief.
You all right?
Yeah, 3116 page.
Sorry.
Okay, that's all right. So you're asking for 5 cars?
Correct.
Last year we gave you 3?
3. However, if you recall, what we did last year was because of the fluctuating gas prices, we had an overage in the fuel account. So we used the overage in the fuel account to purchase 1 car before the end of the year, using already taxed money. I believe I requested 4 last year. We dropped it down to 3, so we ultimately ended up with the 4 cars. So what's happening with the cars is the fact that we're requesting 5 cars, but when we get 4 cars, 3 cars, typically we run in a minimum 4 car plan. So that means those first 4 cars are being run 24/7. What's not being taken into consideration is supervisor cars, special detail cars such as our traffic division. So like our 2 traffic cars, they're both actually, when we bought those, I think the what is that, a little Ford Explorer or something like that. I believe it's like a 2008, 2007, and both of those vehicles are passenger vehicles. So the Ford Taurus that we have came a little bit after that. I know that it was purchased before I became chief in 2011. So that again is another passenger vehicle. The one thing about that is they're being driven by one officer, and they're not 3 shifts. So both those cars are, between 8 and 10 years old.
Right.
So we're looking at replacing those and recycling those through the through the general process that we have, putting the cars into the town. So that's it with the cars. We're looking to replace a couple portable radios for the park guards down at Parker Parks and the CSOs, community service officers. When we did the radio upgrades, they got our old portable radios. So it's been several years now, so we're looking to replace a couple of their radios. And the last item is $12,000 for laser/radar speed control devices. So it's a total of $280,765.
Okay, Chief. On the other questions on the capital items?
I got a question, Joe.
Go ahead, Chief.
Chief, back to the car. So it's my understanding when the deputy chief comes on board, he's going to need a vehicle, correct?
We're already planning for that.
Thank you.
And Chief, what's in your special fund?
I knew you'd ask me that. I wrote it down this year. $171,003 and a couple cents.
And $3. And do you have any plans for that in the next fiscal year?
We plan on replacing the K-9 unit for the next fiscal year, probably between $8,000 and $11,000. Other than that, right now we don't have any set plans.
Okay, thanks. Okay, questions on the capital or other items? Police? Questions from the public or RTM members? Not? Thank you, Chief and Commissioner.
Okay, thank you.
Special detail, Chief. Sorry about that.
Thought I was out of here.
I'm not paying attention either.
Okay.
So the request for special detail is $525,000, unchanged. Again, this is a matching revenue and expenditure for special detail that is charged out by your department.
Very well said.
And anything, it's very active.
Well, it's slowed down a little bit right now, but summertime it usually picks up.
Okay. Questions on special detail? All set. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, take care. The next is fire services, page 33. Chief.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. Massey. Sean.
Just going to do the highlights, correct? So we'll,
yes.
The changes.
Thank
you. Most of the changes are driven by our contractual increase this year. July is going to be beginning the third and final year of the current firefighters contract, so we have a increase in the salaries. The firefighters did get a 2.5% raise, but the reason that percent change doesn't equal is that because we have some members in making a 70% of top step, 80%, 90%, depending on where they fall. So that's why that number's a little off. Next line, the deputy fire marshal's stipend, that was as a result of the recent negotiation for Assistant Chief Heffernan's fire marshal contract. The biggest increase in the budget is in the medic shift part-time line item, and that's $304,686, and if you wouldn't mind, the description of that would be on 34.2. This would be the third year of the 3 years part-time staffing plan we started in fiscal 16. We didn't budget for the full 3-year portion of that plan, but a significant coverage. So the highlights of that are to increase an additional 152 hours of part-time ambulance coverage. And also, we shifted Rescue 2 into this line, which is the, and increase that coverage. So Rescue 2 is an additional firefighter, can be utilized in many different ways, but primarily to make the EMS calls that much more efficient. An extra hands, a lot of the calls initially require extra personnel, but then once the ambulance transports out, we only need the 2 on the ambulance. But they are there to assist with the extra skills, then lifting, moving, carrying. Essentially, the turnaround time should be faster, safer, et cetera. So that's the request in that line. And then there's some following documentation on 34.3 and 34.4. It talks about our call volume. We hit almost 6,000 calls this year. And also, you can see that the revenue has correspondingly gone up. As we have an increase in our call volumes, we're able to handle our own calls in town with our own people and then subsequently bill for that, and so that money comes in. And it's so far, with 7 months of data so far this year, we're doing a little bit better than last year, so it's staying strong. So that's our part-time staffing line. Does anybody have any questions about?
Yeah, on that, I know that if I look at 34.3, you've got the difference between 16 and 17 in previous years is showing a bump of a little under 200,000 from 16 to 17 as far as revenue. What's the expected number for 18?
We have
actually for 19.
For 19,
yeah.
We feel we could probably hit the 2 million mark. I think we're going to be close this year if things continue. And again, we have, based on 7 months of data, every month so far this year has been better than last year.
So for 18, you're going to hit 2 million. And what about 19?
I would conservatively say 2 million. Probably a little bit more, but
because your argument is that you're going to add 300,000 to expenditure, right?
It's about 2.1, but our revenue is ahead of the expenditure, really.
Right. No, I was just pointing out if we're increasing, you're asking to increase the part-time by 304,000 in order to be able to handle more call volume. But the increase in revenue related to that 300,000 is what?
I would say that the increase in the revenue is probably another 0.1, another 100,000.
About 100,000.
Right.
Okay. So there's a net increase on the expenditure side of 200,000.
Right.
Plus, again, it's part-time. Okay. Questions on this request for additional staffing on the ambulance?
Do you have a question?
Jeff, yeah.
So, regarding the staffing chief, Rescue 2 firefighter, so will he be an additional staff member on the shift? So it goes from 8 to 9 men?
We've been funding it currently Monday through Friday at 10 hours as an overtime shift, essentially.
Okay.
And it has proven its worth. Often what happens, as you know, is our calls are not, there'll be one call, and before that call is finished, there'll be 2, 3, 4. So when we need that additional ambulance, in addition to making all those previous calls more efficient, as I explained earlier, they would then get on the 4th ambulance to be at least half a crew. Mm-hmm. And then we would either fill it in with a call in person, preferably, but if we aren't able to get a call in person, we take staff from upstairs and they go down to do the ambulance call. And that's really, you know, like I said earlier, our revenue, the current revenue coming in is a little bit ahead of our expenditures in that, you know, we're covering a lot of our calls in-house, but it's kind of at the expense of some of the other things. So we're trying to just get into a little bit more balance with the available staff to cover the firefighting end, as well as just the daily call volume of EMS calls. It seems to be...
So he could be an additional person on the fire staff then?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Okay. And they will do both. Everybody here, with the exception of the pure part-time EMS people, are cross-trained to do whatever job they need to do.
And I understand you have minimum staffing already, but if he calls out, do you replace him?
Not if we can't get somebody, no.
Okay. And I got a question regarding the call volume. How much aid do we provide to other municipalities in those numbers?
We still have a little bit of a deficit in the aid that we bring in than the aid that we give out, primarily with Guilford.
Thank you. How many cars are they running now?
Guilford has 4 ambulances, I believe.
Not staffed.
Not staffed, right. But they do have a 10-man firefighting shift.
Thank you.
Victor, you had a question?
Do you, Chief, do you miss calls that go to AMR or somebody like that?
Occasionally, and that's where the deficit with Guilford comes in a little bit. Guilford's our primary coverage. We tend to work mostly mutual aid with our neighbors to the east and to the north of us, and occasionally with AMR.
Okay, thanks.
Charlie, you got a question?
No, thank you. No, I met with the chief.
Okay. So can you explain a little bit about where the increase in call volume is coming from?
Sure. Chief Heffern and I believe that the primary driver based on our data for response to certain occupancies are the increase in the doctor's offices, surgical centers. Branford now has 3 dialysis centers. We have, over here we have Yale Cardiology. That also has the ortho surgical center. But the primary drivers are our elderly facilities, our elderly housing, Branford Hills, Gardenside, Artist, senior living. Those are really we're getting to be an older community, and that's the primary driver of our EMS calls.
Thanks, Chief. Okay, any other questions on the personnel side? I see you've got an increase in the vacation.
The vacation increase is primarily there's a group of middle firefighters that were receiving the 12 days of vacation. They've all jumped up, and that's where that increase has occurred this year. While we're starting to drop off a little bit of the older people that are making more, there's a good bunch of guys that are just bumped up.
Okay. Thanks, Chief, on that. Any additional questions on the personnel side? We'll move to non-personnel.
We have two increases in the non-personnel, starting with uniform and clothing. We did take on a lot of the part-time personnel. They had previously not budgeted for uniforms for them, so we added some this year, as well as a little bit of an increase in the assistant chief's uniform allowance. And under other supplies, actually we had a small increase in the building rental for Station 4 of $12.50. We rent that station, we don't own it.
That's
they do all
Beach?
That's Short Beach, yeah. They do all of their own maintenance to the station, and other than housing our apparatus, they take care of everything.
Okay. Thanks. Questions on the non-personnel side? Anybody? Go ahead. Charlie, go ahead.
Hey, Chief, on the ambulance billing, if the call volume goes up, does that mean that figure's going up?
The cost, the money that we pay to the billing company, yeah, it's percentage based. So when we exceed our revenue target, that is our budget numbers based on, we have to cover that.
Okay.
And in the past, we've attempted to do so within just by transfers within our own budget.
Okay, so between the personnel and non-personnel, you're asking for $6,004,226, increase of $365,439, for a 6.5% increase. Questions from RTM members or members of the public on this budget? Okay, I'm going to move to capital.
The capital on 34.13 is all the capital lumped together, and then the subsequent pages describe the details of the request. So for fiscal 19, we're asking to add $200,000 to the apparatus sinking fund, and that plan begins on 34/17. One of the things that previously hadn't been included in the apparatus replacement plan, but after having some recent experience with our requests when we came to you earlier and to talk about the small, purchase of small boats, we added the utility vehicles the previous year, and this year we added the boats as well. So we're going to actually come back to the board at some previous time and really kind of, when we have more time, to give an overview of staffing in the future. And so while some of the requests are slated in fiscal 19, some of those purchases may be pushed off to subsequent years. For instance, one of the vehicles that we expect to replace is TAC 6, which is the brush truck and utility vehicle that's housed down in Indian Neck. There's no sense in replacing it until that process is completed, so it may be pushed off to the future. The other small vehicle is what we call Car 15, which is the utility truck here that we plow all of our own stations in town, so we have 5 stations we're responsible for. We plow those, and that utility truck is used for plowing of that station. And Sean, do you have the age of that vehicle? I think it's
that's 2002.
2002.
TAC 6 is at 1996.
So we get a pretty good some
years out of them.
And I did include the small boats as described at previous meetings into this apparatus plan. Our next major purchase is Engine 5 in Stony Creek, and that when we do replace that, it'll be close to 27 years old.
Okay, questions on the vehicle replacement plan?
Can you touch on Rescue 2?
So Rescue 2 is the third year of that part-time staffing plan, Jeff, was to allow us to take 2 of the full-time career firefighter paramedics off of an ambulance. Right now, half of our staff is on ambulances, and ambulances transport out of town, and our ambulances have become so busy that we're losing staff. So the goal is to take 2 full-time firefighters, put them in a light rescue truck, which we really don't have. We have a heavy rescue truck, which is getting to be 20 years old now. And the goal is that we just did a little bit of a refurbishment on that vehicle, and we'll do a full refurbishment at some point, but it'll be a true heavy rescue, and I feel we can probably get another 15 or so years out of that vehicle. The light rescue truck would have the stuff we do 90% of the time, and it would function similar to the Rescue 2. So that would be absorbed into this vehicle with 2 firefighters, and the end game of that is to reduce the amount of time the one career engine is out doing all these medical calls and available for firefighting and other duties.
So what vehicle is that? What's it? It's a 98 what?
Rescue 2 currently is the former Tahoe that the deputies were using. And this would be more of a truck similar to the small rescue truck in Stony Creek.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions on the vehicle replacement? Okay, on to the next, the ambulance.
The ambulance fund, we just purchased a new ambulance this past year. We're requesting $75,000 in addition to the sinking fund. I did have a typo on 34 .14. I'll correct that with Catherine, but the expenditure for the 2011 remount, the 160,000, should be moved into the 1920 column for the actual replacement of that vehicle. So this year we wouldn't intend to replace or re-chassis. It would be in the coming year, but the contribution is part of the sinking plan to get us to that point.
Right. That way you wouldn't be negative.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Next is radio.
The radio sinking fund, we began a project last year, if you remember. We upgraded all the infrastructure for the fire department radios, the repeaters and receivers, and all the transmitter sites in Snake Hill, West Main Street, Stony Creek. The second phase of that was to add a full site out at the transfer station on the east side of town. This site would serve all of our communications needs for police, fire, and public works would all be as part of that. That's one area of town where we experience a lot of dead zones, and as we go east and we do a lot more regionally, which we are with Guilford, we have some communication problems there. This site also would give us some redundancy, which we don't currently have should we have a failure up on the main transmitter site. And so we're requesting $175,000 to finish that project this coming year.
Questions on this request? And the cardiac monitors?
Cardiac monitor, once a year we purchase either one of the more expensive LifePak 15s, which are multi-function cardiac monitors that allow us to do a whole range of diagnostics. And every so many years we replace all the AEDs. So this year we were looking to replace one of the LifePak 15s.
Thanks, Chief.
And that's the end of the request.
Questions on this? Cardiac monitors? Okay, so total request is $425,000 for capital. Additional questions? Questions from RTM members or members of the public?
Bill, did you say 425 or 485? 45, right?
485, you're right. Thanks. 485,000. Wasn't a cut.
Yeah. Not yet.
Not. Commissioner, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, we're good.
Good?
Thank you. Yep.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? I guess we're all set, so thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Next is municipal government buildings. Page 26.
Oh, there's that one.
Welcome, Otto. I think this is the first.
Good evening. I've been waiting all evening for this.
Pardon?
Been waiting all evening for this.
Oh, yeah, it's a good budget because there's a reduction.
I don't know if you knew it or not, but I've been sitting there, so. And I found the book after 14 years.
Thank you.
Never knew it was there.
Okay, so,
all right, I'm going to go over the regular budget. The highlights are 3 items: regular wages and salaries up by 2.6% per union contract. We have decrease in the utilities, water and electric, a negative of 9.7% due to the energy program that we are doing right now. That's an estimated number that we should be saving. And purchase, service, repairs, and maintenance. Well, I'm going down 2.2%.
Yep.
Things are getting better.
So this 33,000 negative, does that relate to the 40,000 that we allocated for the study?
No, that's related to the $6 million.
To the capital. So you're chipping away at it. Right. You could have said yes. That's it. Okay, questions from Otto on the operating budget? The total request is $991,178,000, a reduction of $33,456. Good job on that, Otto.
Thank you.
Want to move to capital?
Sure. Again, this year I'm asking for a generator for the animal shelter. The reason is still the same. In case of power outage, I guess we found again with the snowstorm how much can go out. Did not lose it up there, but I wouldn't, I think it'd be wise to put one up there, so I'm asking $46,000 for a generator for the animal shelter. Also at the counseling center, which is estimated at $50,000 for the installation, and that's also very important to keep their operation up and running. I'm budgeting for vehicle replacement and over the course of 4 years, if we even have to go that long, $7,500 each year. That's a 2008, if I'm correct, and it's been there for a long time, so it's seen its course. Go back here again. Yep, here, let me see. And then we have the police department cell block stainless steel fixtures. I'm budgeting $45,600. This is the cost for the stainless steel fixtures inside the cell blocks. They are starting to rot out. They've been there for 20 years. We're looking at replacing 2 of them right now. And the budget cost we got for 2 of those to be put in and installed, we're looking at almost about $12,000. The fixtures are, $4,000 plus the controls are a lot of money. So
these are just for the parts?
These are just for the stainless steel cabinets and fixture that goes in. It does not include controls. The controls I'll cover out of the R&M. Because we'll repair what we need behind it, but I cannot cover the cost of, stainless steel fixtures.
Right, but you'll be doing the install yourself.
That's the way we're looking at it. That we'll watch them how they do too, and then hopefully we learn from there and we do the rest.
How many installs?
I think it's 12, 13.
Okay.
And then we got the roof replacement. I've asked for, double the money that's listed there, so I'm looking for the other half. So you can do the other side, and I'll do the whole roof at one time, because I don't want to do one side and then have another side. It's probably cheaper to do it both sides at the same time. So that's $75,000.
So this is a roof replacement for the
police department, flat roof. There are 2 sides.
Okay.
And I had asked for, comes out to $150,000, and they funded $75,000 last year.
Okay.
So I'm asking for the other $75,000.
This is the balance of it.
This is the balance of it.
And this will let you do the project in this next fiscal year.
That's, once this is approved and I have it, then it will go out to be done, because it's time. Because all it is like some type of a felt paper, and we covered it with some silver material that you can use for roofing to buy time.
Is that the original roof?
Oh, it's the original.
That is the original?
Yeah. We'll have it tested, and I'm sure it has to be insulated, and because there have been leaks over the years, just the way the structure of the building is done and how you incorporate the gutters and everything, it's going to have some damage as well, so.
Okay.
Let me see.
Stony Creek Fire.
And then we also have the old PD garage roof replacement, and I'm doing that over 2 years. Put money aside, $50,000 a year. That's been there since 1999 or 2000 when they built the Volunteer Service Center. So that's coming up for replacement. And the VNA building, I'm looking at replacing all the windows on the building. They're single pane. We're doing all this energy stuff, and it's not going to help much if we're going to leave the same windows in there. And the windows aren't wood trim. So this will put them in like a aluminum casing, the way it should be, and will be insulated glass, and you'll have more of a savings on that as well. Oh, wait a minute, I missed the page.
Hey, remind me, we own that building now?
Yeah, the V&A?
The V&A building? We own that?
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
I'm sorry, I skipped one ahead. I had two pages together.
I was following you.
Okay, so we'll back up a little bit. We'll go back to Stony Creek Firehouse. It's the same thing, window replacement over there too. Exterior windows, they're also single pane. They don't open. They're rotting out. And if you try to open them, you'll probably get cut because it's just going to fall right out. So we had a estimated, we had a cost of it, the window replacement, or what we thought we should do, and we estimated X amount for the installation. So, and I think we'll cover it with the $10,000. Townwide HVAC equipment replacement. Want to have $25,000 available in case I lose a unit on the older units that we still have, so I don't have to go into my R&M account. And it's just time to bring some of these units up. We are replacing 4 at the Volunteer Service Center with the program that we have. So, but there are more, and that we should go after. Bobby Waller's front walkway, repair and replacement. If you've ever been down there, very uneven, trip hazard, especially with the with the way ground moves up, down, and everything. It's been like that for years. So I'm just asking for $16,000 to get it redone, which means they'll take it all out, put a new bedding in, put the stuff, this 12 by 12 slates back, and replace all the broken ones.
Okay.
Oh, one more. And then future energy savings, and $25,000, and that's for whoever can help you save money.
So that's $25,000 is not included in Jim's $6 million?
No, because I'm sure I can find something else.
You got a lot of capital items here. So the total request is $382,100. Questions from Otto on Charlie?
Otto, on the generators, like for the counseling center, is that a 50 kW?
I don't have the numbers right off the top of my head, what the KWs are.
Oh.
This is the cost of a generator. It's not just a generator. Both of them. They're not just generators. They're also automatic transfer switches, and it's also running the gas line.
Except, is it going to light up the whole place?
That's the way I do it.
So it'll be 100%?
It'll be 100% lit up. That the whole building will be in operation. How is it? It doesn't make any sense, to trim back on anything. The animal shelter, the gas line is in the back of the building.
That's going to be
the
a gas
electric
operated?
panel is in the front of the building. So you have the additional cost.
Are both generators going to be natural gas?
That's the way I'm going to go. So we don't have to run around and fuel them up also. And
Just seems like a lot of money, unless they're huge generators.
well, the transfer switches aren't all that, cheap either. This is, quoted. It's these are the numbers I've had gotten from a contractor that we use, and that does the service on our generators.
Okay.
So maybe you could get us a little more detail on the specs on this, on those generators?
I think I pretty much have all that.
Okay.
And I know the location because I went over and met with them. And it's, you can have the panel here, but you can't put a generator next to the street where the power comes in, so it has to go elsewhere. So now you have all this additional cost to get the wire over, and these are on small wires. I mean, the wires are going to cost you a lot of money. And then you have to bring the gas line over, and that's going to cost you a lot of money. So these are all additional costs. You know, we have gas there. Then the gas company, I do not believe, is going to offer. If they offer to run the gas line for free, then that comes off of there. But counseling center, we basically have to go in back of the building.
Right.
So that's, whatever the length of the building is, it's all additional cost. It's not like, you know, police department, we go across the driveway. You know, in public works, we just go outside. Or, you know, some of the other buildings. But the animal shelter, again, gas line is in the back, and it may have to be increased. And they're only going to increase the meter, but they're not going to, you know, run the gas line for you. So somebody has to run the gas line.
So right now you have generators at Town Hall, at Police and Fire, at Public Works.
Public Works, we have a generator at Public Works, and if we're going to remain there, we're going to be buying one too, because that's on its way out.
Town Hall's not installed.
Town Hall, it's not installed yet. We are working on that.
And
we have the volunteer service center has a generator. I'm in the process of getting that put in. Police department, that will be replaced because we funded that. So, and that's just, you know, should be simple on off, but it's a good size one. And unfortunately, you know, with Town Hall, I can't take that generator and put it there because the amount of fumes it puts out. We see it every time we start the, you know, the temporary that we used to have, and the smoke goes everywhere and goes right inside the building. So Town Hall takes a little more consideration, you know, and planning on where to put it and everything else. And then, you know, we have a couple of hoops to get through.
We have one at the transfer station also, right?
Transfer station?
Not
No,
the
they don't
transfer,
have
I'm
one.
sorry, the waste,
Yeah, the police department has one.
the treatment plant.
Treatment plant is, you know, they have one, and you know, they handle their own generator. So I really don't have anything to do with that. So, you know.
Okay, have
I mean,
generator
it's,
questions? Then more generators and cars.
Both need it.
I know, especially for the pump stations.
Yep.
Other questions on generators or capital requests by Otto? Questions from the audience or RTM members? I think you're all set, Otto. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Take care. Okay, so that concludes tonight's agenda. I'll entertain a motion to recess for tonight.
So moved.
Second.
Moving second, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
The preceding program was brought to you through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.